You tuned into Mid Morning Talk. Welcome back. You tuned into Mid Morning Talk with me, your host Mariam Mia, only on Salam Media. And now we're talking Hartbeespoort Dam, or as the area is fondly known as Harties. It's just a quick drive, a short, depending where you are in Johannesburg from Centre, probably about 40 minutes. I'm in Greenside, so it takes me about 50 minutes, 55 minutes, depending on the traffic. And you are in another place. It's the dam is beautiful, the area is beautiful. They have this lovely spirit in fierce there with the people, and it's just a lovely day out. So for those of you that are planning a staycation, a day out, a family fun day out is really, really worth it. Going down towards the northwest, Hartbeespoort Dam, it borders Gauteng in the northwest. But sadly, I don't know when that's our expert, Dr. Professor Julie Coetzee will tell us when these little invaders here, these are hyacinths. And when you're driving, sometimes you go, wow, it looks beautiful, a, a green carpet of water. Sometimes the kids say, oh, mom, look, there's water lilies there or water plants floating and it looks decorative. But these, these hyacinths are actually invaders. And for those staying along Harties, or you're visiting or you want to enjoy some water sport or angling and that, thus not only are they invaders, but they are true menace overtaking our dam. So I was here yesterday and I said, instead of getting my producer to get pictures and photos of hyacinths, this one I didn't pick it up, it washed off on the shore. So I brought the this is what it is. It's a hyacinth, and it's it's causing havoc in all aspects on the Hartbeespoort Dam. So good news is billions of tiny insects are currently responsible for the rapid destroying of the hyacinth on the Hartbeespoort Dam, and this is so. To tell us more about this, Professor Julie Coetzee, who is the Deputy Director of the Center for Biological Control, is going to explain to us this phenomena of the bugs that are going to be used to control these hyacinths. I don't know if it's going to be eradicated, but let's welcome Professor Julie, and let's start. Let's ask her then, where did it all begin and what is happening currently. Good morning, Professor Julie, and welcome to Mid Morning Talk here on Salam Media.
Good morning, Mariam, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, so you saw I brought one. I didn't physically remove it. It washed off shore. So that is what we're talking about. Look, when you're coming there, sometimes if you the first time you visit, you look, wow, it looks like, when you go to some of these delta places or water places and you look, it looks like water lilies or it looks beautiful.
Yes.
There's little green carpet. Only when you're a resident there or you're going on holiday and you want to do some water sport or angling, whatever, and these things become a real menace for everybody. So, Professor, do you know where these endemic to Hartbeespoort, or is the history behind the hyacinths that got to be there on the Hartbeespoort Dam?
Yes, so water hyacinth is the world's worst invasive aquatic plant. And so it's not just South Africa's that are affected. It's not just Hartbeespoort Dam that's been affected. It's so many of our systems in South Africa have got this plant on all the way north up into Africa, Southeast Asia, the USA. Water hyacinth is the worst aquatic weed, and it comes from the Amazon basin. So it's not indigenous to South Africa. It was spread around the world in the late 1800s from the US, actually, where a Japanese water gardener gave people who attended a trade fair in Mississippi, he gave them all a plant to take home with them because they've got these beautiful purple flowers. And so everybody who came to this fair received a plant and took it home. And so it became the world's worst invasive weed from that occasion. And then suddenly everybody wanted a water hyacinth plant. They were beautiful, they grew quickly, they quickly covered an area and looked really nice. But now we're sitting in the 21st century, and it's definitely a scourge. And as you know, as you've seen what's happening on Hartbeespoort Dam, these plants have just taken over.
And I believe 2 years ago things calmed down in terms of um, they were very minimal. As I mentioned to you off air last year when I visited, I mean, you saw one or two, and then even in
Mhm.
March, it was looking well. The dam was looking beautiful. You could angle, you could do your water sport. Even the shorelines were looking beautiful. But then come this year, October it started, but I visited there yesterday and along the area where Pekinwood in Key West and the islands, on that waterfront, I mean, even past the jetty, it
Yeah.
was full of hyacinths floating. So, what is the cause of this re-emergence?
So, water hyacinth has been targeted for control in South Africa since the 1960s. And on Hartbeespoort in particular, in the 1970s, it was targeted for control. And the method used back then was chemicals. And these chemical programs where they sprayed herbicide onto the dam continued for quite a number of years, all the way up into about 2017 is when the last herbicide was actually sprayed by the Department of Water and Sanitation. But in the meantime, we have implemented what we call biological control. And biological control is using natural enemies of an invasive species to control that plant. So water hyacinth comes from the Amazon, as I mentioned. And in the Amazon, it's got a whole lot of natural enemies. And these are mostly in the form of little insects. And what we as biocontrol scientists do is we go to where these plants naturally occur, we find their little natural enemies, bring them back to South Africa, or in this case, for water hyacinth, the research has been done in the US, in South Africa, in Australia. We bring them back with permits from the government and we test them. We test them under quarantine conditions, and I'm not talking about corona quarantine, but permitted quarantine facilities that ensures these insects cannot get out. And we make sure that they are 100% safe. So they will only feed on the plant that we're targeting. So in this case, they'll only feed on water hyacinth, and they'll only be able to complete their development on water hyacinth. And we test a range of different species. We test close relatives of water hyacinth. We test South African indigenous species. We test economically important plants such as crop plants. And once we're satisfied that these little control agents are 100% safe and effective, we then apply to the Department of Environmental Affairs and the Department of Agriculture for permission to release these insects. So it goes through a very stringent process through government to make sure that they're safe. And once a panel of experts are satisfied, we then get permission to release. So with water hyacinth, the first agent was actually released in the 1970s in South Africa. And on Hartbeespoort Dam, the program started in the late 80s, early 1990s. And not the insects that I'm talking about now, but the insects back then, they were released. There were a couple of, we get different kinds of insects. So we're looking at different little weevils. There was a moth, a little bug. And these insects did they built up their populations. They ate the water hyacinth. But because the plants were continually sprayed by herbicide, and because Hartbeespoort experiences a particularly cold winter where it often gets frosted, these insect populations never really build up to the point that they can impact the plant significantly. So what happened then in 2018, the Center for Biological Control, where I work, was mandated by Environmental Affairs to get involved more intensively with the biocontrol program. And this is because the Department of Water and Sanitation stopped spraying the plants, and that's when they took over. In 2017, up to 50% of the dam was covered by these by water hyacinth. And the problem with Harties, as much as a beautiful tourist hotspot that it is, the water's really, really dirty. It's getting a lot of nutrients from wastewater treatment works that are failing. It's getting a lot of runoff from farming areas. It's getting a lot of runoff from the township areas, from the squatter camps, from Diepsloot, Alexandra Township. So all the nutrients, all the nitrates, the phosphates in this runoff are running into the dam. And it's essentially creating a beautiful pool of fertilizer for the water hyacinth. So water hyacinth just grows. And we didn't think that these little insects would do as well as they did. So in 2018, we started to release them, and it's a new bug called Megamelus. We call it the mighty Megamelus. And we started releasing these in 2018. Now, I have a PhD student, Kenil Wesebola, and from 2019, every 2 weeks, we sent her 10,000 of these insects, and she released them on the dam. In addition, we set up little rearing centers at Peakenwood School and at Mountain Cambridge School, and we got the school children to also rear these insects and release them. And so we had what we call an inundative campaign, where we just flooded the water hyacinth with these insects. And suddenly in late December, early January, the plants were brown. We were getting calls saying somebody's herbicided the plants. And I went up to do some work, and it wasn't the herbicide, it was the action of these little bugs. And they had they'd managed to build up their numbers to such proportions, to millions and millions of these insects were on the dam, that they started to kill off the plants. And so the plants were sick, they were dying, and they started to sink. And by, I want to say, April 2020, there was hardly a plant left on the dam. But then, as you said, what's happening now? Why are we seeing them again? And the problem with water hyacinth, or to its benefit, is it produces hundreds of thousands of seeds. So even though we're killing the growing plants on top of the water body, those flowers, those beautiful purple flowers, each one can produce thousands of seeds, and the seeds can stay in that sediment at the bottom of the dam for up to 25 years. So what happens is the plants disappear, the sunlight penetrates to those sediments, and the little seeds germinate. And so they explode, and suddenly we're back to square one. And because the plants died, the insects died, because remember, they can only feed on water hyacinth. So if there's no water hyacinth left, there's no insects left. And so the plants suddenly exploded, and we were back to square one, but we knew that this was going to happen. So we've started to do this inundative campaign again. And Mariam, I think if you have a next time you're at Key West, pick up one of those plants and just pull the stems apart, and right down at the bottom, you'll see hundreds of these tiny little white hopping insects. And we're anticipating that by February, March, we'll see what we saw at the beginning of this year.
So have they been already released?
Yes.
At Hartbeespoort?
Yeah. So we've kept releasing since 2019. We have been releasing these insects by the hundreds of thousands.
You have 2021, they've been released again.
Yes. And what we had to do this year was make sure that we were ready for the seedlings. And I know it doesn't look like it right now because the dam is covered in insects. But what we've done is, with a lot of the estates, with the coves, with Lakeland, and with a private individual, Mr. Frikkie Botha, who looks after the Efafi Senior Center, we have set up a whole lot more of these rearing stations. So now we've got people rearing these insects again, and they putting them onto the dam, and we also sending them from Grahamstown at the moment we're actually sending every single week.
I'd love to see them next time I'm there, or maybe I'm going to contact you if you could just send some to me. I want to be part of that solution, physically dispersing these insects in the water. So even if there's a place I can pick it up from and collect it, I'd like to do this, and I'd like to video it for my listeners. So I'm going to chat to you off air if we can make a plan, and I can probably just document it. On this side, obviously, I'll have to speak to the estate manager if we could be part of this as well. And we'd like to do this. So you're saying by March, and what's your plan then for the seedlings? Is there something that's going to then mop up, like bread mops up your gravy and that?
Gravy.
Something that, do we have a mop up plan in action for the seedlings?
So at the moment, what we're hoping is that every season that these seedlings germinate, we get fewer and fewer in the system. And while we keep the pressure of the biocontrol agents on the plants, their flowering is reduced. So we're not getting that continual input each season of all these new seeds. So we're hoping that, after winter, after the summer knockdown, as soon as these new seedlings germinate, we're knocking out a huge component of that seed bank. So unfortunately, water hyacinth is there to stay. The aim of biological control is not to eradicate, but it's to reduce those populations to an acceptable level. And so we know that each year we're going to get fewer and fewer flowers producing seeds. Each year we're going to get that big germination until hopefully we eventually have wiped out the majority of those seeds in the seed bank, so that then we won't get this huge explosion every single spring, but a smaller and a smaller and a smaller explosion until eventually, water hyacinth will just be found in some reed banks, in a few inlets, and people will say, oh my gosh, remember how bad the water hyacinth used to be.
And Professor, and tell me, in terms of cost, who's funding this? Is government funding this, or NGOs, MPOs? Who funds the cost? Because there's a lot of research, there's logistics, transport, getting the bugs from there to South Africa as well. So, in terms of this, how is this being funded?
So we are, biological control research in South Africa is funded by the Working for Water program, which is part of the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environmental Affairs. And historically, we get 3-year contracts with government, which then funds the research and it funds the implementation that we do. At the moment, due to supply chain management issues, our funding has actually been halted. So the Centre for Biological Control hasn't received any funding since April this year, April 2021. We are holding thumbs that the funding will come through early in 2022. So for the last couple of months, we've been pretty much running on some reserve funds. Rhodes University has helped us a bit to keep going so that we don't have to shut down. Unfortunately, we have had to retrench a lot of our team, which has been very sad. But we have started a Thunder Fund campaign, which is a crowdfunding campaign, and targeted specifically at Harties, because we spend approximately 1.8 million rand a year of our budget on Hartbeespoort Dam. And so we're appealing to Hartbeespoort residents, to Hartbeespoort tourists, to Hartbeespoort business owners to please help us raise funds through this Thunder Fund campaign. We were, I think we were probably a little too ambitious. We had hoped we'd quickly get, 600,000 rand and that would be wonderful. But unfortunately, in the 2.5 months that we've been running this campaign, we've only received 80,000 rand. And I know that there's a lot of money in Hartbeespoort Dam. And I know there's a lot of issues, people are saying, well, why should we have to pay for what government should be doing? Why should we be paying for what our municipality should be looking after? But we're really feeling that if people take this into their own hands, we can continue the work that we do, and we can continue to release the insects and continue to have relationships with the different estates around the dam that we are having at the moment.
I'd like to be involved in something like that. What's the website for the crowdfunding?
So I've put it onto the chat. I don't know if you can see it. It's called thunderfund.com, and Thunder is THUNDA.
Okay. I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my producer to put it on there as well. It's on the chat. I'm going to ask him, and then what we'll do is I'll check to you. Let's just see, maybe over this festive season, I should be around there. If you could maybe make some pamphlets and stuff like that, I could leave it down by maybe the islands, the other centers on the other side of the dam. Maybe we can speak to Yasmin. I know that's a very popular attraction. Everybody goes for their goodies there. Let's see how it can go in terms of, like you say, it's not going to be eradicated, but at least if it's at manageable, acceptable levels so that everybody can, and there's it on. My producer has put it on there as well, so it was there for a while.
The campaign is called Back the Bugs.
Okay. So not back a buddy, but back a bug.
Back the bugs.
Back the bug. So normally we say back a buddy. So there's it back the bug. So I love this. And hopefully when you're down here in Gauteng, Northwest at Harties, we could probably meet up and, just do a follow-up on this.
Absolutely.
Maybe do an outdoor broadcast live from the Hartbeespoort Dam. So what I could do is I can speak to my producer. We could hook up when you're around in terms of this, because as you've told me off air as well, after the Cape Town waterfront, Hartbeespoort Dam is the second most visited tourist destination in South Africa.
That's right. Can you believe it?
Yeah, and for me, it's the job creation for the people visiting there. I mean, that area definitely will benefit from this type of ecotourism, economic tourism. So it's in our interest to keep that area looking beautiful, get the water clean again, and just a good day out of the city.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Professor, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for educating us and informing us regarding the water hyacinths on the Hartbeespoort Dam, and also in terms of everybody listening out there. If you love Harties and this is close to your mind, please share this. Even every 10 rand, even a 10 rand will count. Even if you're going there, take out some pocket change, put it there. Maybe we should consider those old-fashioned tins at every store around Harties, so that when you get your 5 rands and 2 rands and that. For me, I always say it all adds up. I always tell everybody, even if somebody gives you a rand, it's a rand you never had for your campaign. So for me, every rand counts. So maybe consider, even besides the electronic version, those small little tins all around there in Harties.
Collections.
That could do. But for me, I'm so pleased something is happening. And yesterday when I looked, I said, if I come next time, is this going to be further and further and further? But hopefully, well, maybe not now in December, January, but by February, we could see a visible difference.
Yeah. Just based on our what's happened for the past 2 years, we've got a good track record now. This has happened without herbicides. And there will be people who tell you that herbicides have been sprayed. There's no evidence for it. We've got the evidence for for the insects, and we're not dealing with an engineering works, which is highly predictable, where if you put X and Y, you're going to get Z. We're dealing with an ecological system. We've had quite a cold, rainy season that might affect the level of biocontrol. Maybe Madibeng municipality has cleaned up some of the wastewater treatment works. Maybe the water is cleaner this year. And so we can't predict exactly what's going to happen, but based on what's gone on for the last 2 years, we are confident that we're going to see a very similar knockdown to what we have seen in the past. And we hope that this is just going to continue going forward with us and our continual releases of these insects, these hundreds of thousands of insects.
Thank you for bringing a festive cheer to us. This is indeed wonderful news, especially for all the water sport lovers, all the anglers out there, especially the shore anglers who lost many a hook, fishing line, bait tackle, got stuck in a hyacinth, and the hyacinths are the curse of the Harties.
The green curse.
Good news coming. Good news coming your way, and it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, Professor Julie Coetzee. And hopefully, I'd like to have it on the waterfront, and let's just see. By then, hopefully, I've got some before photos, and then hopefully in a couple of months we can show the after photos.
Absolutely.
So looking forward to that. Thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you, Mariam.
Especially on this time, and have a lovely, lovely, safe holiday period, and wish you all the best.
Thanks.
And
all
your
the best
team
to you
for 2022.
Thank you to you and your listeners too. Many thanks.
That was Professor Julie Coetzee, and joining us on Mid Morning Talk, only on Salam Media. We're going to go for a short break. When we get back, we're speaking about investments. It's a season to spend, but it's a season to invest. Give a gift. Give a gift of an investment that would be lasting. All this after the break.